And now, coming to you live from the City of Angels, Los Angeles, California, it's the Sheena Metal Experience with your host, Sheena Metal, only on KGRA Digital Broadcasting.
Hi, and welcome to the Sheena Metal Experience on KGRA Digital Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Sheena Metal. I'm a psychic medium. I'm an interfaith minister. I'm a 29-year talk radio host in Los Angeles and beyond. I'm a creative and performing artist. I'm a paranormal survivor, and I come to you from my home in Southern California every Friday at 3 o'clock Pacific time. This show is about spirituality. It's about creativity. It's about humanity. It's about passion. It's about service. It's about becoming and being your best you in this big, beautiful world and inspiring others to do the same. As my mama used to say, just do your thing. That's what it's about. And every week on the show, I have folks that I believe are the brightest and most beautiful and loveliest minds and hearts and souls in all the communities I'm a part of. And I love to have them here to tell you their story. And we talk, we have some fun, and that's what we do. My guests today have been buddies for a long time. They were, of course, part of the wonderful television show Ghost Lab. They're the guys from Everyday Paranormal, the Klinge brothers, and they have a new podcast coming out. Fingers crossed. I'm not going to announce the title. They can come back and announce it when it's ready to go. Please welcome to the show the wonderful Barry and Brad Klinge. How are you both? It's great to have you here. Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
Great to be here.
It's good. How long has it been since we've seen each other's faces? I think since you guys came to LA on the Ghost Lab tour.
That was in 2010.
Wow.
We were there. October
13
2010. Yeah, exactly.
We've done
Probably
many things. What?
yeah, almost to the day. A couple more weeks have been right perfect. So to the day.
Wow.
It was in October.
I loved you guys from the beginning, right? It was like a friendship from the beginning. I have a friend that always says, when you walk into a room, it doesn't take long to figure out who's your people and who's not your people. And you guys were most definitely my people. And I appreciate all the fun things that we've done together. Tons of radio, tons of fun stuff, more fun stuff to come. And I'm glad to have you here. So welcome. What I always, a lot of people ask, like, what got you into the paranormal? My new question I'm asking folks is, what keeps you in the paranormal? Like, what makes it still, Brad, what makes it still exciting for you?
Well, the initial interest in that doesn't go away. If you truly have an interest in the paranormal, for me, it started as a little kid, and that's just something that just doesn't go away. No matter how much you do it, you can maybe get a little burned out on doing certain things, but it always comes back around, and you want to do things differently. You want to, experience different places. You want to tell the stories. And that's the one thing that Barry and I do a lot now is we have so much experience in the past, 13, 15 or more years in being with Everyday Paranormal, that we can sit around a campfire and tell stories after story after story, and they're true. And that's the whole thing. They're not just campfire stories; they're true. And the fact that the truth is stranger than fiction, and just some of the bizarre things that we've experienced, we love to share with people. And just talk. That's why we do podcasts a lot. You mentioned the podcast at the top. That there's one that's in a green light meeting right now. It's a fully produced podcast. It's kind of a big deal. But
Nice.
we had the Investigators podcast recently. We did Ominous with Deborah Wilson recently, where I actually wrote stories and she narrated the whole story. We've done things. Yeah, she's great. We met her through you.
Yeah,
and she's become a very good friend of ours too. So we have that connection as well. But yeah, what keeps me in the paranormal is what got me in the paranormal. It's just exciting, and it's something that I love.
Yeah,
I think Brad stole my answer. I think it's just sharing our experiences with people. We do events all over the country, just meeting new people. We have people that go to all of our events. They travel the whole country just to hang out with us and go to these events. So having a good time, talking to people, and like Brad said, the stories. But back in the Ghost Lab was very science minded and very scientific type of show, but we still think that way, but we've gotten to more into the storytelling. To Because it seems like that's what our fans and that's what our audiences want, is to hear our experiences versus theories and some of the over the top stuff, which we still talk about time to time, but it's that personal story that we tell. That when we do tell it, hopefully this podcast comes out. We're bringing the listener in. I mean, you can almost like you're there. You can hear it. You can smell it. You can taste it. You're going right along with us on these investigations, and that's what the whole podcast is about, just storytelling.
Yeah, we've also personalized a lot of things, as far as a lot of things we've been doing recently involve ancestors and family members of ours that just happened by accident, that we've just kind of stumbled across history where we're related to these people. And so not only are we investigating the paranormal, we're doing ancestry, family tree type stuff along the way too, and seeing how it's all connected back to us. It's a very cool thing that we stumbled across this a couple of years ago, and we've been chasing it ever since.
Wow, that's fantastic. I love that. Yeah, because I think I think there used to be this thing. Well, it's kind of come full circle, right? At the beginning, the paranormal shows and radio shows were very much about telling stories. And then for a while, they became very much about, let's cut the story down to 5 minutes, and then it's 55 minutes of investigation. I think it's kind of come full circle again, because I think that people have become interested in two things. One is the history of the place, right? They want to hear from people who have lived or worked at the place, and what is the history throughout the years? What are the stories about the place? And then they want to hear, what are your stories having gone there? And I think that podcasting is such a wonderful thing, because it's combined radio, old radio, and storytelling. And now people just want to hear the stories of things. And I think it's okay to do like a little bit of, here's the investigation and here's the evidence that we caught. But I think we've started to get sort of disillusioned with the 25 minutes of you just sitting in a room with the glowy green eyes and the night vision camera on. People want to actually hear what happened and how did you feel. And I think that's amazing. For me, that's always been my favorite part of a show, was always the beginning when they talked about the history of the location, and the end when everybody talked about how they felt. And I think that part is growing again in all the new things that I'm seeing, both on television and in radio.
You'll actually see that in our events. For example, this past summer, we went to Virginia, and we did we had about 70, 80 people there, and we had two huge tour buses full of people. We did a battlefield tour. We covered the last 72 hours of the Civil War in Virginia.
Nice.
We went from the Battle of Sailors Creek all the way up to Appomattox, and it was all history. A couple of ghost stories here and there, but it was very heavy on the history because our family was involved in the last 72 hours of the Civil War. And so we tied that in, but then we also tied in some investigations, throughout the event. So it's not all just ghosts. It's, hey, let's learn about this cool history. Hey, let's learn about these stories that you never heard in history. And then we throw in the ghost around it. And it really went well. In fact, we're going back. We're going back in June, the same place. We're going to do some
awesome.
Other battlefields tours. But we found our niche, I think, finally, is very, and we're making them small. Like, we're going to Gettysburg next month. 20
awesome.
people. We only sold 20 tickets. That's it. It's 20 people. Cut it off. And we're going to just have this personal, tour of the Gettysburg battle. And we're going to throw some experiments in there that you've never seen at an event, which is going to be really cool.
I love that. Yeah, I think but then you're also getting to know people. They're getting to know you. You're learning about other people's paranormal experiences. I mean, it's very community building.
Yeah. And when you mentioned the history, there's a lot of schools around here, especially in our area, in our district, that, we've grown up here, and some of the teachers there, they're actually using some of the things, some of our stories in the paranormal that, from Ghost Lab and the things that we do, to teach the kids about history, to make them more interested, because you can talk about the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the Alamo, all you want. To make it interesting to a kid, you throw in a little mystery. You throw in a little, like, history is there and can speak to you, and get that into their mind. And now they want to go down and visit the Alamo or whatever and learn about the history and things like that. And I think that's being lost in today's education, is just the interest in history or the proper teaching of history. And paranormal kind of helps kind of keep that alive, we think.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's wonderful. And I think that's one of to me, the coolest things, because I've been a history buff since before I was a paranormal survivor. So the history of something to me is fascinating, and especially, places that I've never been before, things I've never seen. But growing up in, being a Connecticut girl and being from one of the original 13 colonies, you just grow up with history all around you, and it's a way of life. Sometimes I'm amazed with folks that my friends that grew up here in California, and I love my California, how much they don't know or care about the history of our country or the history of the world. And I'm like, man, it's everything. I mean, to learn about the history of what made this country what it is, to me, is 100% what it's all about. And then also learning about the history of our community, right? Where did it start? What was it like to be an investigator in the 70s? How has it become more accepted over time? You need to know about your own community and where you come from, because then you have to teach the next generations, right? And that's what I love about you guys so much.
Yeah, we try to keep it real and keep it out there and keep it fresh and interesting. And we feel like we're doing a pretty good job. And the reason I say that is because we enjoy doing it. So if we're having fun doing it, that just rolls downhill.
It's awesome. Awesome. Now, since it's almost our 13th anniversary of knowing each other, that's kind of a creepy, good, spooky number coming up on Halloween. When you first did my show, and it was this show, just in a different pre-COVID world, we talked about how when you started as investigators, you kind of had a thing happen, and then you were not really into adding psychics into your investigations. So when you did Ghost Lab, that was not a part of it. But then things changed your mind, and we all talked at one point about even doing something together that wound up not happening, but probably maybe in the future we will. How are you feeling in the community now about integrating psychics and mediums into paranormal investigations?
Well, we've always, we used to view psychics as kind of like a tool in a toolbox. It's like, you have an EMF detector, and you have this, it's like you're using another person's abilities to try to find evidence. And we're always about finding tangible evidence. And we've had run-ins with psychics that, weren't the real deal. They're kind of, shady. Then we've ran into some psychics that blew our mind away, that were like, whoa.
Sure.
And I think, and that's right. And we ran into those ones that kind of screwed us early on. And right. I think that we were jaded because we hadn't had much exposure to anybody like that prior to doing, forming Everyday Paranormal and doing paranormal investigations. And so our first impression of psychics were people that were just out to lie and put a spotlight on themselves and be dramatic. And so that's kind of how we envisioned it. But like Barry was saying, you have to look at the science of it, and that there is, even though psychic ability is more of a metaphysical type thing, there's a science to it. There's got to be. If it's real, there's got to be some sort of science. And so we started tapping into that kind of stuff. But what we were doing is we were putting our kind of testing parameters around it to make sure that we were satisfied with the results. And that's where we started to kind of believe that, hey, this stuff is real, and there are some people out there who have this ability.
Yeah. Because I think it's a beautiful way to incorporate both sides of what the paranormal represents into one. And I think all those years that there were people in the community that were very anti-psychics. And, I even interviewed people that were on some of the bigger TV shows that admitted to having their own gifts, but couldn't talk about it when they were doing that show because you'd get rode out on a rail from the community. I'm so glad that's changed, because I think every good investigator has to be a little intuitive to kind of sense what's going on around you. And I also think we need a whole community, right, where everyone is represented. Just like the cryptozoologists can come, the ufologists can come, everybody is welcome, because all of it represents a piece of what makes the community whole, right?
Yeah, no, over the last several years, we've really incorporated psychics and mediums in our events, in our investigations. We just recently did a cold case missing person, 31-year-old missing persons case, and we actually found evidence of where this person possibly is. And we had a psychic friend of ours from Houston that was giving us remote viewings, and I'm here to tell you, she's pretty spot on some things.
Spot on.
I mean, like, we're talking about things of the case, things that she would never know that we just found out. And so it really helped us. We actually dug for the body. We thought we found her, but I think we have a general area where she's at. But it was just really cool how we combine we found an EVP, the traditional ghost hunting, and then the psychic started integrating and like kind of leading us down this, like narrowing the path a little bit. So we had this broad spectrum where everything's on the table. Now we're focused, like, okay, we're going to go right here, literally to the spot where we got an excavator and started digging. And so psychics on that case was paramount in helping us find what we were looking for. But we have, like, our events, we have Tim Shaw. I don't know if you ever met him, Reverend Tim Shaw up in Buffalo. He goes to our events. Dana Stricker, she's from Wisconsin. She's been at a few of our events. We're still friends with Chip Coffey and those kind of Scott Allen. We were on his show. He's a psychic out of Massachusetts. So we're psychic friendly now. We're all buddies now. So
we always have been. We just had to have the right experience, and I think we finally did.
Yeah, good. I'm glad because I think we all need to be more inclusive of everything, because I think everything that is beyond the 3 dimensions is a little connected, right? And I think that we need to be more open. I think openness is the key in this community. Is there anything you don't believe in within the realms of the spiritual and paranormal community? Like, is there stuff where you're like, yeah, I can't, like if you're throwing a gig or something, you're like, I can't with this.
One thing and this is not, don't.
I know what you're going to say.
Don't take this personal at all.
I know what you're going to say.
I have a hard time with people that cross people over.
Yep, I was going to say the same thing.
Or they have this ability to change the spirit's being and where they're at, whatever that is, I don't know, and move them somewhere. I don't understand that's possible. To me, I'm a Christian, so I'm like, if God's not doing it, then why? What gives you special powers or will to do it? I'm not saying they can't. I'm not saying that because I don't know. It's the unknown. We'll never know. But
that's the thing. They don't know either. So have they tapped into something that they know more about than we do? I don't know. There's nothing tangible with crossing someone over that we would know about. The psychic ability, it's tangible because they can know things and say things that only we would know, or things like that. Crossing someone over is literally, you have to go on their word to say, yep, I crossed someone over.
We've met some that, you come to an event, they're like, oh yeah, I was at this haunted place and it was haunted by like 14 ghosts, and I crossed them all over. They're not there no more. I'm like, really? I was like,
how did you do that?
I want to learn that.
Okay, so here's what I think about this. I agree with you 100%. I bet you weren't going to think I wasn't going to say that.
I wasn't sure. That's why I said that. No disrespect, but
I don't believe it. First of all, even if you could, I don't think you should, because it's not your business. Just like it's not your business to decide you don't like your neighbor and try to get them evicted from their home. They are, in the case of active hauntings, not residual, right? But in the case of intelligent hauntings, they are sentient beings. And who are you to go someplace and tell them you're not allowed to be here anymore? I've decided you go there. Here's the other thing. As it has been explained to me, and as I have witnessed with my mother since she passed, a lot of spirits, it's not like they don't know how to go home. They might not want to go home, but most of them go home, they come back, they go home, they come back. They can cross themselves over if they want. And so it's up to them. They want to stay here, they're welcome to stay here. But I do agree, somebody walks in and they're like, oh, I crossed over 37 entities tonight. Really? Okay, that's weird, because then the next week the investigators go, that place still haunted as hell. So I don't know who you missed, but you missed a lot because they're still there.
Right.
I
don't harp on the ones that truly believe that that's what they're doing. That's fine. But when you kind of make it dramatic and you make it a spectacle and you're like, look at me kind of a thing, like I can do it. I have to cry bullshit on you. It's like, that doesn't happen.
Well, you kind of hit the nail, Sheena, when you said they can come and go as they please.
Yeah,
it's a matter of free will. And we always talk about this from a religious standpoint when people ask us. It's your spirit is what drives the physical nature, the skin and the body. That intangible spirit, that energy has free will. It has free will to make me wiggle my fingers like this. It has free will to make me be on this show or not. So when the body's there, and if this is an intelligent spirit or energy, then that energy still has the free will to do what it wants to do. And so I think that intelligence retains itself. So I do agree with you there. And for the ones that get offended, if there's anyone listening, when we say that, it's okay. It's our opinion, and we're up to hearing your side of the story. See, that's the whole thing.
Absolutely. I'm not a big fan of, and you guys know this because you know me now for, I guess, 13 years. I'm not a big fan, even before I was out of the psychic closet, you knew me. I'm not a big fan of putting a lot of ego around things. First of all, in my life in general, I don't put a lot of ego around things. But I think that sometimes because people treat psychics like they're messiahs or prophets, and I know because people treat me like that, I think it's a little uncomfortable. People sometimes, a person that's not very secure within themselves kind of buys into that, and they suddenly start to think they're superhuman and they can go in and do this and they can do that and they can pull demons out of people, and they can do this and they can put a demon in you if they want. It's like, let's all just dial it back a bit.
I think that's kind of where our early vision of like what psychics were to us is because we do events and things like that. You always have that one or two people in the event that's psychic, and they let you know they're psychic. So the whole crowd is just gravitated on what this person. So it's like this look at me kind of mentality. I'm important. I mean, it's
or everyone's trying to get away from him. They either gravitate to him or trying to get away from him. It's one of the two.
I got a funny story for you. So we're at an old Civil War hospital in Vicksburg, Mississippi, and it's called the Duff Green Mansion. We're there. We had a group of, it was an event, and this lady just out of nowhere, she starts going, "Speak through me, speak through," just like,
God,
what are you crazy? Well, our friend Aaron Houdini was there, and he's a real jokester. He happened to have a whoopee cushion, and she starts going, "Speak through." He said, I mean, just left this loud, and it was the funniest thing I ever. It was awesome. That lady just like ducked her head, and we never saw her again the rest of the night. But just stuff like that, just comical.
I used to watch a show that should not be named back in the day, and I guess the psychic got possessed a couple of times, and it must have brought ratings, because then suddenly the psychic was getting possessed every week. And you could tell because the face would start like this. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. Here comes the possession. Now, if you are a psychic and you're good at what you do and you're allowing yourself to be possessed every single time you go somewhere, you're not putting up the right protection, because you're not supposed to get possessed every day. Now, I understand sometimes a place is so viscerally haunted and so negative that you could pick up an attachment, or you could have trouble letting some energy go. But if you're getting full on possessed every week, you need to get some help and take a class in how not to be possessed. But I know it's ratings and everyone wants to see it, but what's the chance that every single place you go has a demon that possesses you? I mean, there are not demons in every haunted location.
I mean, what's the chances of every place has activity? I mean, we went to Ghost Lab. We went to some places and caught nothing. I mean, it was just like, just boring, just nothing going on. And so the story kind of took over, helped carry the episode a little bit. But, you watch some of the shows now, it's like the Haunted Mansion at Disney World. It's just everything's going on every day, all day. And it's like, no, that's not how it happens. It doesn't work that way. And unfortunately, we have people come to our events, and that's kind of what they expect because that's what they've seen on TV. They think we're just going to show up and hear the ghost, and we're going to talk to them all night.
Haunted Mansion, stuff starts flying.
It doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a shame because I interviewed a parapsychologist once, and he was talking about, it was actually a Dr. Kieran O'Keefe who was on Most Haunted in England. And he was talking about how, like, as a parapsychologist, right, you go in for a month just to get your control readings, and then you go for a month to look for activity, and then there's another month for your findings, and you're happy if a car like moves 2 inches in a 2-week period. Like, you're not expecting things are flying in all directions. Now, I think the world as we get, as we in the spiritual, we talk about the veil thinning, right? More activity is happening than ever. And I also think the more you look for it, the more the spirits come out for you because they're excited for the attention. But still, it's not like every location that you walk in, like you said, is going to be everything flying around you and you get hit by a haunted doll. I mean, it's just that it would be fun if that's what it was like. It would also be dangerous, but it would be fun to do that.
Yeah, in our experience, it's like the amazing stuff, like things that just like move across like in front of your eyes, or the apparitions or rocks that get thrown at you in an empty room. Something that's not supposed to happen. It happens in such a quick instant, and then nothing. So we found that that these things take energy to be able to manifest, to do something physical like that.
Yeah, sure.
And once it's expended, it's like a battery. It has to recharge itself over time to be able to do that. And that's why we've these amazing things that we've experienced, some real amazing things, but they happen in 2 seconds, 3 seconds at the most, and then it's gone.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. It's wonderful. I know that it's Brad, you were the one that your first experience was Gettysburg, right? When you were younger?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Well, my first big experience, was Gettysburg.
What is it like for you now to be doing like what Brad talked about, taking people to Civil War battlefields? Is it, are you still having those kinds of experiences there?
Oh, and yeah, we've gone to several. We could have a whole show here talking about all the experiences on the battlefield since then. But Barry and I went back to Gettysburg to the same spot where I caught that video years ago. About 3 years ago, Barry? And It was me, Barry, and his son. And it was twilight, and we had cannon fire going off that we recorded. We captured Rebel Yell on the, like that hooting and hollering. We caught a bullet whizzing by in Antietam. We caught drum beats. And every time we go to Gettysburg or Antietam or those places, it's almost guaranteed that something weird is going to happen at some point in time. It's just a place. It's ripe for it.
No, I just remember being there as a kid and feeling so sucked in by all of it and not knowing why. And I think that residual energy of what is there, right, on its own is completely overpowering. And then you add in the active stuff that's there, and it's crazy. I'll tell you something interesting. So my best friend and her son run the Historical Society here in my hometown, and they do the biggest Civil War reenactment this side of the Mississippi every Labor Day weekend. And the more I become in tune with my psychic stuff, because the more you use it, the more it comes, right? Sometimes I feel things off of artifacts and garments, because all the reenactors, they want to have the authentic stuff, right? And sometimes they'll come up and talk to me while I'm like working the front desk and the registration, and I'm like, oh, and something will come off of something that they're wearing, and I'll say, like, where'd you get that coat? Oh yeah, it's all good. It's that stuff holds memory, not just the place, but also the garments and the guns and the chests, and all that stuff holds stuff.
Yep, absolutely. That's why a lot of the museums are classically haunted. It's not because the museum is on a haunted location or the building itself. It's all the stuff that it holds inside.
Yeah. I remember when, so my grandmother, my mother's mother and father met when they were ambulance drivers for the Red Cross during World War I in the European theater. And they had picked up these copper shell casings off of the battlefield and brought them home. And when my grandmother died, my mom took them, and they used to be displayed in the house. And I was going through this copper phase, and I said to my mom, where's those copper shells? I would love to have them. And she's like, oh, honey, I got rid of them. She's like, they had such heavy energy on them that I could not be within 20 feet of them, and I had to get rid of them. And all I thought of was, oh my God, why didn't she give them to a museum or sold them? I should probably just gave them away in a garage sale for like $1. But there were things, because my mother's gifts were so strong, there were things that couldn't be in the house, and I get it. So do you do anything to sort of protect yourselves or make sure that you're in the right headspace before you go to a location like a battlefield?
Nope. we take the opposite approach. Actually, we kind of just want our guard down. We want to be able to, because like as ghost hunters, as paranormal investigators, you're after evidence, right? You're after stuff. And so we think that in order to get stuff, you have to be kind of like guard down, whatever protected is. I don't know what that means, but we call it the John Wayne approach. We just kind of kick the door down, we kick ass, take names, and then we get out.
Yeah, and it's not.
It works for us. That's why we do it.
It for us. And it's not so much kicking the door down. It's letting the guard down. It's like, let's say you're out in the battlefield, right? Well, we're out there wandering around, looking at monuments, reading plaques, looking at the birds, just taking it in. We're not thinking about ghosts or finding ghosts or ghost hunting, because that's when the stuff happens. It's when you least suspect it.
Yes.
So letting the guard down simply means not only do we not however you protect yourself, you're putting yourself in a mindset of ghosts, or we're not out there, hey, ghost, where you at? We're just tourists. We're just tourists, and we're just taking it in. And that's when we have found that the stuff will happen. A watch pot never boils.
And I'll give you 3 examples of that. So Brad was talking about Gettysburg, Antietam. When we went with my son, we're in the cornfield at Antietam, one of the bloodiest spots in Antietam. We're there. The corn is still there. We're just walking through. We're not saying anything, just talking with amongst each other. I'm actually telling my son how to work the camera and do all this stuff. We caught this about 4 or 5 seconds of drum beats, like a drum cadence. We moved down to what's called the Burnside Bridge, which is the kind of the final part of the battle. The Union was trying to take this bridge. The Confederates were firing upon them. We're along this stone wall where a lot of them were buried, and we were just talking. And we said, yeah, they were over there taking musket fire. We're just talking about the battle, and this bullet, it just whizzes by us. I mean, it's definitely a bullet sounding whizzing by our heads. Then we moved to the, Pickett's Charge, and we're all just sitting there talking about, just whatever. And that's when we caught the rebel yell. The only thing we caught me like provoking was I actually yelled in the field, fire! And that cannon, it goes off after I say fire. But I would say 80 to 90% of all the events we've ever caught in our careers has been that nonchalant, hanging around, BSing with each other, not paying attention. That's when that's when the best stuff happens.
Yeah. I think sometimes they they hide when they think it's expected. In the same way that you find that a location, after every television crew has gone through there and every paranormal team, the location seems to sort of die. And I think the spirits pull back because they maybe don't want to be messed with all the time, right? They don't want to have crews in there 4 or 5 times a day. Finding the locations people haven't found, or going places at a different time where it's just you, or a small group of people, I think that gets bigger results.
Yes, definitely.
Do you find that too?
Yeah, for sure. I always say that when we're talking and just kind of BS, and it's like it goes, hey, I'm the main guy here. You know, they'll ignore me, and then all of a sudden they'll interject. Or we've had evidence when they actually come into our conversation and they're talking about us. You know, it's
Sure.
like, but it definitely. I hate the whole, and we all do it because it's kind of a starting point. You know, is anybody here? What's your name? What, you know, the whole thing.
Oh, God. Are you a little girl? When did
it's
you
horrid.
die?
I mean, it's like painful to watch.
Well, the main point of that all though is not so much the questions itself, but if there's anything residual there, we have found that just being loud, our voices help reverberate the walls, and anything that might be trapped in the environment, let's record it on the environment. Possibly we're like a needle on a record with our voices and our amplitude. We do a whole thing with a rope, and we you know, Barry gets on one side of the stage and I get on the other, and we tap the rope a little bit. Remember the game where the wave goes down the rope?
Yeah.
If you do it a little bit, the wave just kind of just goes and peters out. If you do it really hard, the wave is big and it goes all the way down to Barry. So that's how we said my voice is the amplitude. The louder I am, the further across the veil this might go to get a response. So there's a method to the madness. But yeah, Absolutely. Sitting around, and they used to hate it on Ghost Lab because we would go into like an area and they'd have a haunted inn, bed and breakfast. And we'd find the most comfy couch and we'd sit on it and put our feet up and just look around. And the camera guys would be like, do something. It's like, we are.
Yeah. No, you know what? There's a haunted place in my hometown that the Historical Society takes care of. It's the oldest house from 1898. When, you know, I like you guys, I love that time period. I came out of the box obsessed with Abraham Lincoln and the Civil War. And when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, I was begging my mom to take me every place he'd ever been. I had a Civil War bedroom when I was 7. So I love this house. And when I go there to investigate, or I go there with YouTube influencers or whomever, I like to find a place that feels like the heart of the house and sit there and let the spirits come to me. And they always do. If you're being very aggressive with them, sometimes I think they just kind of like talk to my ghost hand and they go away. This idea that you have to like badger them out or scream at them or do horrible, mean things. It doesn't always have to be that way. There are many ways to get them. And I think with you two, because you both have, like you said, these very booming, resonating speaking voices, and you also have this kind of big, beautiful energy that makes them want to come out and see you, because they know that you're not threatening and they know that you're not here to do something to mess with them or hurt them. You catch more flies with honey, right? And it's true. You kind of have to make friends with them and let them know you're a safe space, and then they'll come out and they'll be all over you because they want to talk. They just don't want to be belittled or threatened or ask the same 5 stupid questions over and over again, that I think the paranormal community as a whole should ban the same 5 stupid questions.
Yeah, and it's if you're gonna, it also depends on location. So we've done maximum security prisons, and so when you go into those places, if the attitude is the same as the spirit as it was when it was a prisoner, you got your murderers, your rapists, those types of people, very egotistical, very narcissistic. And if you get under their skin by being an ass, then that's a lot of times we found that's where you get that response in places like that. But we always say if you go to some grandmother's house who bakes cookies for the local kids, you don't sit there and call it, get out of here, you old bag. You know, you don't do that. they're the same then as they are now, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And for the TV part, of course, there's two jobs. You got the production crew. They're trying to tell a story. They're trying to put something on TV that's entertaining, and then we're trying to do our thing. So you have to kind of marry the two. So if we're in a prison, we can't. Hey, Johnny, I don't mean no disrespect. No, we're going to be not mean and nasty and assholes to you, because that elicits a response at that location. But like Brad said, we're in a place that doesn't warrant it. We might get loud and like, can you hear me? I mean, really, because that's just our amplitude of our voices is gets evidence. It's not what we're saying. It's kind of how we're saying it.
It's also the way the environment feels. Like, for example, Tombstone, we went to the Birdcage Theater, okay? And that's original, like to the floorboard. That place is original. And
Awesome.
you would think that we would say, hey, you yellow-bellied sapsucker, that type of thing. What do? We laid on the floor. We just laid on the floor in the dark and just listened, and stuff happened. And it's almost like it's kind of being intuitive. When you walk into an environment, you kind of know what you might have to do to get a response. You have to survey the land a little bit just to know, what is it I'm going to do here? Am I going to carry on? Am I going to be quiet? Am I going to find a nice spot? Am I going to ask a certain question? Am I going to just keep my mouth shut? It all comes to you when you're there. And it's funny, at the Birdcage Theater, our first thought was just lay on the floor and listen.
Yeah, right. Sometimes just listen. You get so much, and sometimes if you have all your gear on, they'll just talk. If you're just listening, it's so easy. But I think people, well, it's like everything, right? It's like I teach in the spiritual world that as humans, we're taught to like go out and get things and push and push and push. But the truth is, the way things really happen is you ground yourself, you stay where you're supposed to stay, you do your thing, and then, Spirit God just throws the opportunities at you, and they just kind of filter down into your life, what my friend calls sky candy. But if you're always pushing, sometimes you're missing the really cool thing that's happening because you have an agenda of what you think you're going to get. It's why I don't plan questions before shows, because if I did, I would miss the best stuff by deciding what was going to happen during the show instead of letting you reveal the amazement that you're bringing to the show.
And it works. It works because we've been on shows where they have those scripted questions.
Yeah.
And it's like you answer the question and they're not listening. They're just anticipating the next question.
Yes.
And then the response is, okay, so next question. It's so bad. And I like to have the conversations like this.
That's like our podcast. All the podcasts we've had are all conversational. They're not scripted. In fact, when we get on, it's just like this. We're just going to talk, and we get into our stories, and we go different ways, and we get off tangents and things like that. But that's how we do our podcast. It's not scripted at all, because you've heard the scripted podcast. It's boring. It's like, oh my God.
Maybe for others, but it's not for me. It's not for me. I like it au naturel, warts and all. It's just going to be what it's going to be.
Even with the mess ups, and that's just part of it. It's real.
It's how you know it's live, I always say. That's the mess ups are how you know. I just sneezed a minute ago. That's how you know it's live.
And Brad's dog's barking in the background. So.
I didn't know if you could hear that or not. So.
Oh yeah, we hear it.
Fantastic. So with you, where do you think? How do you quantify when you're in a location, or even when you're not, what the difference between a spirit that was actually of a person who passed or something that never was here alive, like an interdimensional or an earth spirit or an elemental, or maybe even sometimes an off-worlder that is here and it seems like it's paranormal. I had a friend that did celebrity ghost stories. And after he did it, he said to me, they made me say it was ghosts, but I'm pretty sure it was UFO activity in the house. So, all those things kind of can represent and manifest the same, right? So you can think you have one and then you have something else. I mean, do you believe in all that stuff? And do you believe that sometimes it can all be interchangeable with the activity that you're getting?
I think it can. However, in our experience, I can't say that we've ever knowingly or been able to like write in the books that
We
yes,
never walked out and said that was definitely an elemental, or that was
Yeah.
definitely.
Right.
We've never
Right.
had that experience.
We've had everything that we've had has some sort of human characteristics as far as like a voice, or if something moves, or so there's nothing that we can pinpoint to say that would be non-human. Now we've come across some very bad things, but to say, is that a demonic entity or is that just a bad human spirit? Can you really tell the difference? I don't know. But we personally have never. We've always come across what we have assumed are either three. It's one of three things. It's a residual energy that's just recorded. It's an intelligent energy that can interact with you, or it's interdimensional and it's actually time happening on its own plane, and this time can intersect and you can see each other, whether that's the past or the future. So it's always one of those three things that we hypothesize about. Now, could that be elemental? Could it be, I don't know. I don't feel qualified enough to make that determination.
And we've seen things like for instance, we saw like Brad and I think it was at the Shanley Hotel.
The tan blob?
Tan, like Jello blob, like go across the room, like a beanbag, like a Jello beanbag.
Look like a beanbag chairs rolled across the room.
Is that human? No. It's not a human type thing. And another example, we were in New Orleans, and we this was before Ghost Lab. Our camera guy was under this crawl space because there was workers there, and they're leaving the job site because something was under this crawl space scaring them. Find out there's a possible crypt under there. Well, our camera guy was in there, and he said he saw something like a
gargoyle
werewolf type something crouched in the corner, like looking at him. He started to back out, and actually a rock, we got it on video, this rock comes flying at the camera. That wasn't like a human type one. That was more of like an animal type, scary horror movie type thing. But
like a mythological thing. Mm-hmm.
Right. So some of the things we've seen, not really human form, but we don't know if maybe that's how that human transpired. That could be a yellow beanbag going across the floor. I don't know, but it's just strange. Those strange.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah. I've seen all kinds of. When my mom came home from the hospital, which I didn't know she was passing, I thought she'd come home to rehab, and we kind of gutted out the family room of this house and put a hospital bed in the middle. I used to tease her that you're getting old when the wet bar becomes your diaper station. And it was the day that the home health social worker came in to make sure the house was okay. And she and my mom were just chatting it up, having a blast. And I saw this thing. It looked like one of those Halloween witches that hang in a window at Halloween, where the bottom is like the skirt's made like out of crepe paper, and it has the long kind of straw hair. And it just flew around the bed this way and shot back up there and disappeared. I don't know if that was in this house because, and I live in this house now because it is on an Indian burial ground, so anything goes here. Or if it was something my mom brought home from the rehab, or if it was something that lady brought in, but it was definitely not a human spirit of any kind. And we've all seen that kind of stuff. And I think it's exciting that we're still trying to figure out what that is, right? What is it? I think that's exciting.
Right. To us, it's an experience, it's evidence, it's audio, it's we categorize in the same category, but as far as like the makeup of it or the kinetics of it and all that, we don't know. Probably never will know.
Yeah, you guys have like a really strong attachment to the Civil War. Are you a believer in past lives? Do you think maybe you lived then?
We have a definite connection to the Civil War through our direct great grandfather, and his brothers and things, and they fought in some of the war. They fought in Chickamauga and Gettysburg and Antietam and all of those battles. And he survived up until
3 days before
the surrender. on the
Killed.
Confederate side.
He's buried in a mass grave in Farmville,
And,
Virginia.
and so we don't know if that maybe it's just the family attachment to that. Like we had no idea 3 years ago that we even had a grandfather that fought in the Civil War, much less at Gettysburg, much less on Devil's Den where we got an EVP that told us to run.
I'll tell you a quick story. So we're there with Brad and my son. My son's never been to Gettysburg. We're doing the typical rounds. We go to Devil's Den, and we had the recorder. We recorded in different places. We were on top of the rocks, and I had the recorder, and I stuck it in one of the big cracks, and I said, anybody here? I was doing my questions, dumb questioning. I said, any Confederate soldiers here? And we get this voice that says, run. And we're like, oh, cool, man. That's a cool EVP, blah, blah, blah. Months and months later, I start getting like Ancestry.com and start looking at stuff. And I find this great-great-great-grandfather. And J.A. Gorham was his name. He's from Georgia. He was with the 17th Georgia Infantry. He enlisted 2 months before Gettysburg. Gettysburg was his first battle. And where do you think he fought? Fought on Devil's Den. He took Devil's Den on July 2nd. And he was at the bloodiest battles in Civil War. He was there. And so 2 summers ago, my family, me, Brad, and my wife, and another guy, we literally followed his footsteps. We stood exactly where he was 158 years ago. And so it was surreal to be like, you really thought you were part of them. Then what was really cool at the very end, like you said, he's buried in a mass grave in Farmville, Virginia. He was shot, wounded, went to a hospital. The Union took it over. He was a POW. He died in the hospital. They took all those dead bodies and just buried him in this big mound. We were there, and we were just doing some stuff and visiting it, taking pictures. And I rolled up his information. We were there on his birthday.
Wow.
I mean, I'm sorry. I believe in coincidences and all that, but never heard of this guy a year before that. And then I knew him. I mean, he was a teacher. He did this. He owned this. I mean, I knew who he was. He was 35 years old when he died. But it's like on his birthday. I mean, it's like it really spoke to us. Like we were supposed to be there on that day.
And so, are we seeing these areas like Gettysburg through his eyes? And is that why we're able to experience so much stuff there? Or is it just because anyone can experience that much stuff there? But we definitely have a connection.
I agree. We are totally out of time. I love you guys. Will you come back and do this with me again? I'd love it.
For sure.
Yep.
Awesome.
Just let us know when.
Where can people find you online?
You go to Facebook, everydayparanormal.com. Everyday Paranormal is our Facebook name. Everydayparanormal.com is our website. Our website has everything. It has the events we're doing. We're doing a big Paracon in January 27th here in our hometown, Church, Texas. We're going to Virginia in June. We're going to an event in May up at the Ohio State Reform, where the Shawshank Redemption was filmed. We're doing an event up there. So if you go on there, everydayparanormal.com, you can find all the stuff that we're doing. That's probably the easiest place to find.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks to KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network for hosting this show every single week. My wonderful program director, Bill, and my fantastic engineer, Emery. And thank you so much to Barry and Brad Klinge, the Klinge brothers, for being here with me. Good friends, wonderful guys. I adore them. If you want to find me, I'm at SheenaMetalSpiritual.com. You can book private sessions with me that way. You can find about what I do. I'm also at 818-437-0886. If you want to text me and say hi, please do. And I'm on social media everywhere at Sheena Metal. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and X, formerly Twitter and TikTok. And until I see you next time, seek peace, live in love, lead with kindness, embrace unity, always work to raise your vibration, and know that you are loved and you are loved and you're loved by me. I'm Sheena Metal. This is the Sheena Metal Experience. And I'll see you next Friday at 3 o'clock Pacific time, only on KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We'll see you soon.